Picture this. You're cruising peacefully at 30,000 feet when there's a loud thump from somewhere beneath your seat. The captain comes on the intercom, calm and reassuring. Just a sticking valve, folks, happens from time to time. 20 minutes later, a sweet chemical smoke begins seeping up through the cabin floor. What you don't know is that in the cargo hold below, the remnants of a bomb are still smoking. We're about to explore the first attempt at mass murder in the sky. So stow your tray tables, fasten your seatbelts, and prepare for some extreme turbulence, because this is Final Boarding Call.
What an intro.
Hello and welcome to Final Boarding Call. I am your disaster-obsessed host, Alice, and today I'm a little under the weather.
Which seems to happen a lot for such a healthy woman. My autoimmune disease, and I almost never catch a cold.
I think for somebody who travels 50% of the time.
You travel a lot. Your life is gross. I get it.
Yeah. I want to give a huge shout out to my immune system because I should be unwell constantly. And I'm here with my homebody husband, Zach.
Designated.
Designated.
But I'm not home today or yesterday. We be golfing.
Zach has a really hard work schedule this week. Before we dive in, a quick reminder to our listeners, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Shoot me a message on the Instagram because
yeah.
I love that, even though sometimes Alice jumps in there and responds anyway.
No, I'm going to stop doing that.
She totes did it, though.
One time.
Buy some merch. We've got the merch.
Oh, we do have merch on our store, which is finalboardingcallpodcast.com.
All of our friends that listen know I can't just go in our closet and hand you a shirt. We don't have them here.
No.
Okay? You got to order them.
Mm-hmm. So this episode is based on research from FBI case files, reporting from the Washington Post, and a really good Cornell Law School chronology on this investigation. November 15th, 1979, a crisp autumn morning at Chicago's O'Hare International Airport, one of the busiest airports in the world. The temperature is in the 40s, and a light wind carries the first edge of winter across the tarmac. At the gate, passengers are boarding American Airlines Flight 444.
Oh.
I know, it's a fun one. And it's bound for Washington National Airport. The aircraft is a Boeing 727, registration N876AA. And no, I did not write out the proper Alpha Tango Foxtrot version of that.
It's called phonetics.
Oh, I hate it here sometimes. Okay. All right. Anyway, what is the Boeing 727, Zach?
It's a plane.
What is it in the fleet?
Workhorse?
It's a workhorse. You know it's a workhorse.
They're all workhorses.
They're all workhorses.
They're all working.
They're working. For anyone unfamiliar with the 727, it was one of the most successful airliners of its era. And what's interesting is the last story that I told us was also a Boeing 727, and I didn't mean to do that. This is completely accidental. But this is also, yes, this is also that 3-engine, super Jetson looking,
awkward,
weird jet. And
but it worked.
Yeah, it's 4 medium haul routes, which is great. We need something like that. It has one design quirk that matters to our story. Instead of engines slung under the wings like most modern planes, the 727 mounts all 3 at the rear. So 2 on the sides of the fuselage, and 1 is built into the base of the tail. This is the weird Jetson look that I'm talking about. That layout let it operate from shorter runways, and it's why the cargo and mail ride low in the belly, forward of the cabin. So there you go. Now you know.
Because it's my super short show. I don't know if anybody else watched that when they were kids. Whatever, it's fine.
This morning, 72 passengers climb aboard, which is a typical mix of your business travelers, government workers heading to the capital, and tourists. Among them is a group of 12 people on their way to a White House conference on libraries, which I would get down in a library conference.
I like to explore the libraries where we go.
They're amazing. And included in that group is Art Plotnick, who is the 42-year-old editor of a journal called American Libraries.
All right, then.
He settles into row 14. I feel like people used to have the coolest jobs. Like you could have a job like that and still be able to buy a house. 8 crew members round out the flight. We are commanded by Captain Donald M. Tynan of Boston. He's an experienced pilot who has flown this route many times. And as the cabin crew runs through the safety briefing, exits, seatbelts, oxygen masks, most people do what most people do. They completely tune that out. They are not paying attention at all to the safety briefing. None of them know that the oxygen mask demonstration that they are half ignoring will matter enormously in about an hour. You guys never know. Pay attention. Even if you fly multiple times a month like me, pay attention to the safety briefing. Know where your closest exit actually is. Count the seats between where you are sitting and the closest exit so that if it's pitch black, you can count and still be able to get off of the airplane.
Or if it's filled with smoke.
Correct. Yes, Zach. Down in the cargo hold, among the suitcases and the mail bags, sits an unremarkable brown paper parcel, roughly 9 by 10 by 7 inches, literally a box. And it moved through the U.S. mail system from Elgin, Illinois, which is a suburb about 40 miles northwest of Chicago, and nothing about it drew a second glance. I hope that's how you pronounce that. Elgin? It's either Elgin or Elgin.
I don't know. I've definitely heard Elgin before.
I apologize, my Illinois listeners. Please forgive me. Inside is a bomb. And the part that makes it deadly isn't the explosive, it's the trigger. The device is wired to a barometric pressure switch. Now, barometric just means it senses air pressure, the same thing that makes your ears pop on a plane. As an aircraft climbs, the pressure around it drops in a smooth, predictable way. And that falling pressure is something a simple switch can be built to detect. So, think of it like an altitude-activated tripwire. It's invisible, it's silent, and it's set at a specific height. I apologize if you guys can hear the hippo. He is tippy-tapping and grumbling and just, we're not in bed snuggling him, which is not acceptable.
Now he's at least laying down underneath us.
We'll take it. The bomber's logic was cold and precise. By the time the airplane climbed high enough to spring that wire, it would also be too high and too far from any runway to get back down before the bomb did its job. That's sick.
Mm-hmm. Technology.
It's pretty crazy. At 11:20 a.m. Eastern, Flight 444 receives clearance and rolls. The 3 Pratt & Whitney engines spool up, the 727 lifts into the clear November sky, and the climb begins toward a cruising altitude of 30,000 feet. So our passengers are settling in. They're reading because it's the 70s. They're smoking.
People used to know how to read.
And with every 1,000 feet they gain, the air pressure in the cargo hold drops a little further. creeping toward the number that will close a circuit in the belly of the airplane beneath them. A short time after takeoff, there's a loud thump. It comes from below the cabin. It's a distinct concussion that rolls through the aircraft's aluminum frame. Any sound is going to be amplified because you're in
Or
like a
vibration
tin can.
or anything like
Correct.
that.
Yes. Captain Tynan hears it on the flight deck, and passengers feel it through their seats. What just happened is that the barometric switch sensed the aircraft had reached its trigger altitude and closed the circuit. The bomb was supposed to tear the airplane apart. As the plane climbed and the outside pressure dropped, the switch would fire, the charge would detonate, and the 727 structure would fail catastrophically at altitude. But the bomb only partially fires.
Pressures, folks, they matter.
Instead of a structural blast, there's what Plotnick later described as a sucking sensation and a loss of pressure. Everyone's ears popping at once, followed by a strange, sweet chemical smell. Investigators from the National Transportation Safety Board, which we are familiar with, would later call the explosion very low yield. In plain terms, that means the device released a tiny fraction of the energy that it should have had everything gone to plan. It blackened the roof of the cargo compartment, but it never pierced the fuselage. And the flight controls were untouched.
Beautiful.
The reason for this failure is chemistry. The device carried a charge of ammonium nitrate, which is a genuine explosive. It's the same compound used in industrial blasting. Yeah, not a good gift for a child. But mixed in with it was barium nitrate, a compound used in fireworks to produce colored flame and smoke, but not a destructive force. Here's the difference that mattered. A true explosive detonates, releasing its energy almost instantly in a shock wave that shatters everything around it. A firework compound deflagrates. That's my first time saying that word, for the record. That's not a common, just in my vocabulary term. And that's a fancy word for burns fast, releasing its energy as heat and smoke over a comparatively leisurely fraction of a second.
You just quoted your daughter's book, and it was adorable. That's a fancy word.
Fancy word. We're dipping a toe into Fancy Nancy right now. We're right at that age. It's the difference between a stick of dynamite and a road flare. One destroys, the other just burns hot and makes a bunch of smoke.
Makes you real visible.
Whether the bomber added the barium nitrate deliberately or simply made a bomb maker's mistake has never actually been settled. The effect, though, is clear. Instead of exploding, the device mostly just burns. And burning is what fills the airplane with smoke. At first, Captain Tynan doesn't grasp the scope of it. The engines are running smoothly, the airplane is handling normally, and the thump could be any normal number of mechanical hiccups. So he checks the intercom, and he tells the passengers that it was a sticking valve, adding that it happens from time to time. For about 20 minutes, that explanation holds. The flight continues toward Washington, and people relax and forget about it. Then, smoke arrives.
And nobody wants to see smoke when you're on an airplane.
It's alarming. It starts near row 9. It's a thin wisp rising through the floor from the cargo hold below. Within minutes, it thickens, and it spreads. A flight attendant tells passengers to open their overhead air vents, hoping to clear it, but the smoke is still coming up. And
Yeah. But also those overhead vents blow air. They don't suck it out.
Yes, correct. Like, you're still circulating the air
Yeah.
that's inside of the plane. It's not like
Okay.
it's pulling outside air.
Just
like,
making sure
here
I
you
wasn't
go.
some kind of idiot.
Nope. It's a whole sealed system. You get what you get
And
on
that's
the
the only
airplane.
way to hold air pressure. Yeah.
Correct. That's why we had issues like with Helios flight, where if something happens regarding the air inside of that plane, you're not getting
That's
more.
what you got.
Yeah. Yes. It's getting denser and denser by the second. Very quickly, Plotnik recalled, the whole fuselage filled with smoke. It was very, very scary. So as a reminder, Plotnik is the library journalist,
Mm-hmm.
which is a very niche job, but I love it. People begin to cough and strain to breathe. Guinea pigs for sale. The smoke grows so thick that passengers can't see each other across the aisle. And the sweet chemical smell becomes overwhelming. What began as a curiosity, oh, that's weird, your cute little wispy smoke, has now become a full-blown emergency. Broccoli, you stop. I swear he's trying to escape.
It sounds like he's opening the latch.
Yes. Broccoli, no. Knows how to work the emergency oxygen system. Ha ha, ha ha, should have paid attention.
Tee-hee.
The crew activates the passenger masks, and the yellow cups drop from the ceiling on their rubber tubes, swaying above every row. Now, those masks aren't tanks of stored air the way people imagine. On most airliners, pulling the mask down starts a small chemical reaction in a canister above the seat that generates oxygen on the spot. And that is why, in the safety briefing, they tell you to tug the mask toward you to start the flow
of oxygen. Even if your bag does not inflate, it is flowing oxygen.
That's exactly right. And here's a weird one. You might smell something burning when it activates.
Because that is the chemical reaction.
Yes, but they don't tell you that in the safety briefing. That's just something us on the pod are going to be aware of.
Yes.
That's Zach's favorite. He loves it when I use that term. They're designed to keep you breathing for a matter of minutes, long enough for a plane to descend to an altitude where the air is breathable again. They were never designed for a cabin that is filling with smoke, because that doesn't pertain to altitude. Plane's still going to be filled with smoke.
Yeah.
Oh, so people are freaking out. Zach, dozens of passengers in various states of panic, some standing in the aisles against instructions, some are fumbling to help seatmates, and there is smoke now so dense that it cuts visibility to only a few feet. The flight attendants move through it, doing exactly what they were trained to do. They are fitting masks. They are calming people. They're trying to keep order. And they're doing it in conditions that they'd only ever met in a classroom. And because the masks pull in cabin air along with their oxygen, the thickening smoke begins seeping through them, making even the emergency equipment less and less effective. On the flight deck, Tynan and his crew, that's our captain, they are running their own crisis. A cabin full of passengers in distress, smoke of an unknown origin, and a destination that is still very far ahead of them. The decision comes fast. Land at the nearest suitable airport, and that is Washington Dulles.
Naturally.
That's right. I know how to pronounce that word. Year and a half into the podcast, Washington Dulles, which is closer to their position than National, and with runways that are long enough for a 727. So Tynan announces the diversion and warns the cabin to brace for a rapid descent. Flight attendants move passengers near the front toward the rear, where the smoke is thinner, and they brief them for a possible evacuation. The 727 noses over into a steep descent, something that would be much sharper than a normal approach. Loose objects are sliding forward through the cabin. It is that steep. At roughly 12:50 p.m., about an hour and a half after leaving Chicago, Captain Tynan puts Flight 444 down safely on the runway at Dulles. Emergency vehicles are already rolling, alerted by air traffic control. The moment the airplane stops, fire trucks and ambulances ring it in a semicircle with flashing lights. They are like, hello, we are here. The crew opens the 727's built-in rear air straight, which is the aircraft's own fold-down staircase.
Perfect.
Love it. And passengers pour down it onto the tarmac. They are coughing, their eyes are streaming, and they're freaked, understandably. Plotnick was the first one out. That man was like, this ain't no library. Get me out of here. Paramedics work through the group. 12 people need treatment from smoke inhalation, but the injuries are minor overall. All 80 aboard, 72 passengers, 8 crew, survive what could have been an unthinkable tragedy.
Yeah, absolutely.
While passengers are treated, investigators board the airplane and they follow the smoke damage straight to the cargo hold.
Mm-hmm.
There, among the mail containers, they find the remnants of an explosive device, batteries, wiring, and most tellingly, an altimeter, the biometric instrument that had been wired to trigger the bomb at altitude. This is not a disgruntled passenger. This is not a prank. It is very clear that this is a deliberate, technical bomb making, and the discovery instantly turns an aircraft emergency into a federal terrorism investigation. Because the bomb traveled through the mail, the U.S. Postal Inspection Service comes in alongside the FBI.
Sorry, guys, we missed this. I'm gonna check it out now.
Gosh, what show is it where there's a guy from the Postal Service? It's played by Andy from The Office. Remember that? The guy who takes his job really seriously at the Postal Service. Is it Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
Oh, it is 99.
Yeah, where there's like the Postal Service guy. And he's like,
99?
yeah, he's really into his job. Mail bombing is among the most serious cases that they handle. And as one investigator noted, whoever mailed it had no way of knowing which flight it would get on.
Oh, I didn't realize that it was meant to be random. Just like wherever it goes,
Wherever
we're gonna
it
do
goes.
this thing.
If you put a letter in the mail right now, are you going to know that it ends up on flight
Yeah.
whatever? No way. It just goes into the ether. So this was not targeting a person. Their goal was just explode plane. Any plane would do. As agents catalog the components, they notice the device is built entirely from common, untraceable materials. Crudely, but effectively assembled, the work of someone with real technical knowledge, but no professional training. And when they pull the open files on similar devices, they find 2. The first goes back to May 1978. A package turned up in a parking lot at the University of Illinois at Chicago, addressed to an engineering professor at Northwestern. Because it looked like the professor had sent it, it was returned to him. Except he hadn't sent anything. Suspicious of a package that he didn't recognize, he handed it to a campus police officer named Terry Marker. Terry Marker opened the package, and when he did, it detonated, injuring his hand. The second came a year later, in May of 1979. A disguised device left in a room at Northwestern, rigged to look like a gift someone had abandoned. A graduate student opened it and was injured in the blast. 2 universities, now an airline. Investigators are starting to see a pattern. The same crude but deliberate hand, the same untraceable materials, the same instinct for disguise. The FBI opens a formal case file under a 6-letter code drawn from those targets. UNABOM, for university and airline bombing. Bet you didn't know that's what Unabomb stood for.
I thought it was university. I didn't think that it was the and airline thing.
I know. What follows becomes one of the longest and most expensive investigations in FBI history. And from the start, it's almost uniquely unsolvable. To understand why, you have to understand what investigators usually rely on. Most cases break on connections. A bomb component traced to where it was solved, a motive linking a suspect to a victim, a relationship that explains why one person was targeted over another. But the Unabomber offered nothing.
Yeah, it's the same thing with randomized murder.
Yeah.
If you just walk down the street and killed somebody that you have no idea who they are, you've never met them, it is darn near impossible
It's crazy
to track.
We are not recommending you do that. His devices were assembled from scrap wood, common nails, and hardware that you could buy at any store in the country. Nothing carried a serial number or a paper trail. He left no fingerprints. And his victims had nothing in common with each other. A campus cop, a graduate student, an airline full of strangers, and later, computer store owners and executives who'd never met and shared no enemy. There was no thread to pull because the targets weren't connected to him or to one another. He picked them as symbols, not as people.
It's so wild to think.
It's wild. Investigators built a psychological profile, and it was remarkably accurate. This is what they had him pinned as: an intelligent, technically skilled man, probably with a college education, likely connected to the Chicago area where the early attacks clustered. Somebody who felt rejected or pushed to the margins by the institutions that he was striking at. The profile was good. It was also near useless because it described thousands of people, and it pointed to no one. They came to call him the perfect lone wolf, and they meant it as a grim compliment. The attacks continued for years, growing deadlier and more reliable as the bomber learned from each one. In 1985, he claimed his first fatality, killing a computer store owner with a bomb left in a Sacramento parking lot. By the mid-1990s, the campaign had killed 3 people and injured more than 20. And the FBI was, in many ways, no closer to him than they had been the
Ever
day.
before.
Yes. Then the bomber made the move that ended him. In mid-1995, both the New York Times and the Washington Post received a 35,000-word manifesto titled Industrial Society and Its Future, a sprawling argument that technological progress was destroying human freedom and that violence was required to bring the system down. The author made an offer: publish it in full in a major paper, and the bombing would stop.
Okay.
This put everyone in a genuinely awful position. Publishing meant handing a serial killer exactly what he wanted. a platform, proof that murder can buy an audience. It risked inspiring imitators and rewarding terror, but refusing meant turning down the bomber's own promise to stop and walking away from tens of thousands of words written in his unmistakable voice, words that someone out there might recognize.
Yeah.
This is the only clue we have from this guy.
Who do you know that speaks this way and says these kinds of things?
Do you know anyone who likes writing manifestos? Red flag. The debate ran all the way up to the FBI director, who is Louis Freeh, and Attorney General Janet Reno. And they ultimately decided the gamble was worth it. Maybe the writing itself could catch him. So in September of 1995, the Post published the manifesto as a supplement. And the gamble worked, but not in the way that anyone expected. The break didn't come from a profiler or a forensic lab. It came from a living room in upstate New York, where a man named David Kaczynski read the manifesto and felt his stomach drop. The phrasing, the obsessions, the particular way the argument was built sounded remarkably like his older brother,
Ooh.
Ted. To understand why that recognition was so devastating, we have to know who Ted Kaczynski had been. This was not a drifter. This was a genuine prodigy, a boy so gifted in mathematics that he entered Harvard at 16.
Jeez.
He earned a PhD in math from the University of Michigan, solving problems that his professors described as the work of a rare mind. And by his mid-20s, he had become one of the youngest professors ever hired by the University of California, Berkeley.
Which
He
also
was.
makes you insanely alone.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. He was, by any conventional measure, at the very top of American intellectual life. And then he walked away from all of it. He resigned from Berkeley after just 2 years. He drifted and eventually bought a small piece of land outside Lincoln, Montana, where he built a 10 by 12-foot cabin with no electricity, no running water, and no telephone. And he lived there for 2 decades.
Jeez.
Increasingly isolated, increasingly consumed by a hatred of the technological world, the same world he'd once stood at the pinnacle of. The prodigy had become a hermit, and the hermit his brother now feared had become a killer. David Kaczynski agonized for months. Turning in your own brother, knowing it could mean his execution, is a decision that almost no one is ever asked to make. But the alternative was knowing that more people could die. He went to the FBI and provided letters Ted had written him over the years. When linguistic experts compared them to the manifesto, they match in vocabulary, syntax, and phrasing. Combined with the circumstantial evidence, this was enough to justify a search warrant. On April 3rd, 1996, agents surrounded the cabin near Lincoln, Montana, and they arrested 53-year-old Theodore Kaczynski. The cabin was a confession in physical form. Journals detailing his experiments and attacks, bomb components, technical notes, and one fully assembled device ready to be mailed.
Oh, wow.
The evidence tied him not only to Flight 444, but to 15 other attacks across 17 years. In January of 1998, facing the death penalty, Kaczynski pleaded guilty to all charges and was sentenced to life without parole. He died in federal prison in June of 2023. Flight 444 left its mark well beyond the people who walked off that airplane. The investigation it opened pushed forward the FBI's work in forensic analysis, criminal profiling, and the linguistic comparison that ultimately cracked the case. The Unabomber file was created because of this flight, and people have no idea that the Unabomber even did anything regarding an airplane.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
I had no idea.
Yeah. Whew. It exposed a blunt vulnerability. In 1979, screening focused on passengers and their carry-on bags. The idea that someone could simply mail a bomb into a cargo hold was a revelation. One that fed years of slow tightening of cargo and mail security, work that wouldn't be completed until the screening mandates that came after 9/11. For the passengers, the aftermath was quieter and longer. Many carried the memory of believing that they were going to die.
Yeah.
They survived on a margin almost too thin to credit, a measure of the wrong compound that turned a bomb into a smoke generator. That is crazy.
Yeah.
Without that mistake, November 15th, 1979 would be remembered as one of the deadliest aviation attacks in American history. And instead, it's remembered as the day a killer's chemistry failed him, and the day the hunt for the Unabomber began. And Zach, that is our story for today.
I love when it's a whole lot of information that I just didn't know at all. Everybody has heard of the Unabomber, but I had no idea there was ever a plain one, and picturing just the slightly different chemical compound, instead of killing 100 people, just smoked them out and people were breathing some smoke for a little while.
This one's crazy. Oh, man. Zach is a history nerd, and I do enjoy being able to tell him these crazy history ones. This one is also a nice relief from
All the death.
a really heavy episode as well, because even though the Unabomber did terrible things and did kill multiple people, this plane was not it for him.
Well,
Nope.
And I would like to point out the reason I don't know things like this is because I'm not the disaster-obsessed host. I like history. I'm not looking for murders and bombs and all kinds of things.
This is my thing. All right. Well, if you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow us on social media. Message Zach. He would love to hear from you. Shoot us an email, finalboardingcallpodcast@gmail.com. And join us next time when we will be exploring another transportation disaster story. Until then, remember to stow your tray tables, fasten your seatbelts, and prepare for the unexpected, because not every trip reaches its final destination.
Goodbye.